and to the speakers, of course, to this session on streamlining permits for renewables. I am Paula Rey Garcia, and I am the Deputy Head of Unit in the Renewables Unit in DG at the European Commission, and I will be the moderator for this session. So, moving directly into the substance, 2022 and 2023 were record years for renewables deployment, and both for new and wind and solar projects. And we can see also that the reforms that we have undertaken to streamline permitting are bringing results. But we are also seeing that, of course, challenges remain, and this is really a key objective of this session. So to go in details into what has already happened, take stock of the impacts of the actions that are already underway, what is being done also at national level, but also map the challenges that remain and that need to be tackled, and reflect all together and gather ideas also on how we can take this forward, what could be the potential future actions from the different perspectives. So I will be presenting what we have been doing recently at European level, but we would also like to hear the perspective from member states, from the local level, also from the renewable energy industry and from civil society. So I think very soon you will see a QR code, and we would ask you to kindly take your mobiles and scan this code, because this will take you to the Slido platform, and we will be using that platform both for a survey that we will do at some moment of the session, and then also for gathering questions that we will be able to also ask our speakers about before the end of the session. In this Slido platform, you can add your questions, and you can also vote what are your favorite questions from the ones that other participants online or in the room will be posting. So, moving now into my presentation. Yes, I think it works now. So I would like to set a bit the scene, focusing on what we have been doing at the European level, what the Commission has been putting forward in this area. And first, what we would like is to really recall that renewables are really crucial for our different objectives. So first, of course, they are critical in the context of the Fit for 55 package of legislative measures to bring us on track with our climate and energy targets, to really get to climate neutrality. They are also equally important when it comes to the emergency measures that were taken and the efforts that were taken with the Repower plan to really address the challenges of the energy crisis and also of the Russian aggression in Ukraine. And in addition, they also bring many other benefits and have impacts not only on climate neutrality or strengthening energy independence, but also economic growth and job creation, and they are also essential tool to provide affordable energy prices. So this is really the rationale for the measures that we have put in place from the Commission side, and one very important element has to do with the revised target in the Renewables Directive, where we have raised ambition together in the EU agreed target to a level that is much higher than before. It's a target of 42.5% by 2030, with the ambition to reach 45%, but really a new binding target of already 42.5%. And this share of renewables in the European energy mix in 2030 is very ambitious. It means almost doubling what we have for 2022 with 23%, and it means doing that doubling by the end of the decade. But at the same time, the positive message is that we believe really that is doable. We also, as I was mentioning, seen that renewables are increasingly present on the ground. We have seen really big improvements in 2022 and 2023, which were record years. In 2022 already with all-time high figures on solar and on wind technology installed, but then again in 2023 these were outdone, and we have seen even bigger numbers. So there is a very positive trend that makes us believe that this is doable, but at the same time we need to also recognize that what we are seeing in terms of deployment is yet nowhere near where we need to be. So if we look at the EU target, we would need to still add about 1.5 times more wind and solar capacity by 2030 compared to what we have now. So this really puts the finger on the challenges that we will be looking into. And this means also that we need to mobilize all efforts at all levels to be able to scale up and to speed up renewables deployment to achieve those targets. So how to go about it? So what we would like to explore is really what we have identified as really the key bottlenecks that could really stand in the way of this acceleration of deployment of renewables. And from our side, in particular, in the permit granting procedures, we have identified a number of them, and you can see them illustrated in this slide. So they have to do with the long procedures, with quite a workload in terms of paperwork, also not yet fully digitalized. We also see that they have to do with complexity, so quite a high number of parallel procedures with limited coordination between the different authorities that are involved and the different entities. They also have to do with something that we also have flagged as quite important, which is inadequate spatial planning, which then has spillover effects further down the process, and also with insufficient citizen and community involvement in a number of cases, and that at different levels of the project chain, let's say, so from the planning to the individual projects. And this can also lead to lower public acceptance, so it's quite an important barrier. We also have seen bottlenecks in relation to the difficulties for grid connection procedures, and on the human resources side, both on insufficient capacity at different levels, but also general lack of skills in many cases in permit granting authorities. So to address some of these barriers at the EU level and from the Commission side, we have work on different fronts. So we have now, as I was mentioning, the revised Renewable Energy Directive, which already enters into quite some elements for permitting in particular. So we have time limits for permit granting procedures. It is also mandated to have a single contact point for applicants, and also a phase out of paper-based communication, so more digitalization also. It also introduces a more strategic approach to spatial planning with the designation of what we call renewable acceleration areas. So these are areas that are particularly suitable for certain technologies, and at the same time, and this is very important, where the environmental impact is expected to be low. So therefore, projects can really benefit from these areas, can really be granted lighter procedures without, for instance, project-specific additional requirements from the environmental assessment side. And this can be, for instance, areas around transport infrastructure or industrial sites, degradable land that is not used for agriculture. And this is also something that we have developed in details in the recommendation and the guidance that I will mention in a short while. In addition, in reaction to the energy crisis in Europe, we have agreed on an emergency regulation with also targeted measures to speed up permitting in certain cases, so focusing on some technologies and also some type of projects where it was clear that they could be rolled out more quickly and with limited environmental impact. So Examples here could have to do with some, for instance, heat pump projects or solar projects that would feature under this emergency regulation. And then, in addition, last month, coinciding on the 13th of May with the second year anniversary of the REPowerEU plan, we have adopted further measures, a package with more initiatives in this area. And here we have included, among others, an update of the 2022 recommendation on permitting and the guidance. And these were already part of the REPowerEU plan 2 years ago, but we saw that there was really an added value in bringing them in line with the latest legislative framework and with the revised requirements and ambition. And we have looked also, we have zoomed into the elements that I was mentioning are particularly important and also relate to some of the bottlenecks. So, for instance, better planning, faster and simpler permitting, also looking into related infrastructure projects, for instance, networks and storage that are necessary to bring more renewables into the system. We have also, as part of this package, included guidance on how to designate renewable acceleration areas, to also support all member states to proceed rapidly with the designation of those areas, because we have seen that this really contributes to a faster rollout of renewables, and at the same time minimizing environmental impacts. In the guidance, we have included as much as possible good practices, examples, practical examples, and also an overview of mapping and planning and digital tools that can support in the designation of renewable acceleration areas. And we have also launched in our website an online tool to support specifically member states in this process. So we there provide answers to the questions that they may have in a quite interactive manner related to the implementation of the revised permitting provisions. And of course, we also support also member states through different channels in this process, being through technical assistance, workshops, or also expert groups. So after this overview of what we have been doing on the Commission side to accelerate permitting, I would now like to turn to what other stakeholders have done and what the impact has been. So I will be introducing each of our speakers and then inviting them to give a presentation on actions at different levels, being at national, regional level, from the local angle, also from the industry perspective or from civil society. And I will first ask Jorge Paradela, who is the Regional Minister for Industry, Energy and Mining in the government of Andalusia in Spain, to please deliver his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Let me first of all say it's a pleasure to participate in Europe's Sustainable Week on behalf of the regional government of Andalusia. And a quick hello to my fellow panelists and to all the audience. The way we look at it is quite simple. Europe wants to industrialize itself through clean technologies, and it wants to reduce its energy dependence. And Andalusia would like to play a prominent role in this game. So these are big challenges to which we think, as a region, we can contribute quite significantly. We humbly believe that we have all necessary elements to do so. No? First of all, we have natural resources. Just to give you an idea, solar radiation in Andalusia is 13% higher than Spain's average, which brings it about 50% higher than Germany or, I don't know, Northern Europe. And that translates into clean energy at competitive costs. Just to give you an idea, according to latest estimates, PPAs in Spain are now between 25 and 40% lower than EU average. Just to give you an idea as well, maybe more visually, the same installation in Spain will be twice as productive as that installation placed in Northern Europe. We also have quite a strategic location. as a kind of bridge to Northern Africa, also good connections to South America, and also good connections to Northern Europe, particularly related to ports. We have a nice port infrastructure, which is quite relevant, for example, when it comes to green molecules. And then I always like to emphasize we have the talent and know-how, a wealth of talent and knowledge. We have 16 engineering schools, 25 specialized degrees, and really strong engineering companies. Where we are today, we have 12 gigawatts of installed capacity, renewable installed capacity, and another 11 gigawatts with construction permits. So 11 gigawatts, which are already quite advanced. We are right now processing about 1/4, 25% of Spain's renewable projects, and we have been able, even considering that high number of initiatives, to process everything according to the milestones which were established by the Spanish government. About 60% of Andalusia's electricity generation comes now from renewable energy. So we have, thanks. And we're trying to facilitate this process through a number of things that I'll try to go through quickly. We're trying to reduce bureaucracy, simplifying the regulatory process without any kind of compromise regarding environmental guarantees. So no compromise. We have a really strict environmental legislation. We work in full coordination with the Regional Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment. And we have a team of experienced managers, what we call project managers, who are assigned to strategic initiatives, strategic projects, and they will be able to streamline permitting and reduce permitting times quite heavily, roughly around 50%. For some initiatives, we go even as far as reducing permitting times by 60%, 65%, which is quite significant. We're also trying, we are firm supporters of public-private alliances. For example, we established a really ambitious alliance around green hydrogen, the Andalusian Green Hydrogen Alliance, with 150 entities. So you have companies, but also research centers, universities, and associations, which is proving a lot of a really helpful tool in order to advance on our green hydrogen roadmap. And we're also trying to stimulate the absorption of solar energy or renewable energy for citizens and SMEs. So we encourage self-consumption through subsidies and incentives. And in 5 years, we have installed, or we have facilitated the installation of 113,000 self-consumption installations for domestic use and SMEs. So currently, self-consumption accounts for about 15% of the total solar installed capacity in Andalusia. So those are just a few bits and pieces, a lot of determination from this regional government to make the most of this opportunity. We really believe we have some of the most necessary requirements to play this prominent role, and we definitely want to contribute to Europe's transformation, the decarbonization of its economy, and the reindustrialization of our continent through clean technologies. Many thanks.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive snapshot of what you are doing and also the progress that you are seeing from the Andalusian region. So next would be the perspective from the city side. So I would like to invite Sara Giovanni to also deliver her introductory points. And Sara works in Energy Cities, so she brings really the perspective of the local level and also the efforts to foster local ownership of renewables. So Sara, please.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you for inviting me to this session. Yes, I will jump on what the colleague here just said on the willingness at local level as well to contribute to reaching European targets and the fight against climate change. And of course, the political will at local level is mostly there. We have a level of awareness on the fact that we need to increase the speed of the transition to reach this common target. And of course, fast-tracking permitting is an important issue that at local level as well. So overall, The new requirements that have been set at EU level brought also the spotlight back on this topic of permitting, also in some areas that are more rural and far away from Europe, where this was not really something that the cities, municipalities were discussing before. So this is something positive, definitely, that was as an outcome. At the same time, at European, from our perspective, so the municipalities that we are in touch with, that are part of our network, they are worried about this need to accelerate permitting, so the implication of these new rules, because I mean, as I'm sure you already know, there is municipalities are back up often with the permits requests. And so they have difficulties in coping with this. This is due mostly to the fact that most municipalities, they lack the staff needed for permitting and planning. And so also there is not enough knowledge on this topic that is quite technical at local level. Also, I think in terms of decision making is also an important point that was mentioned by many of our members. So there should not be a trade-off between the acceleration, the need for acceleration, and the need to proper consultation and engagement of all the actors concerned. And municipalities are one of them because, yes, they are involved, but, for example, the definition of acceleration areas is not something that in many member states is a responsibility of the municipality, but still municipalities should have a voice in the definition of this area, and citizen, of course. And also another interesting point that we have heard from our members is that the focus on this acceleration has been often put mostly on solar energy. So there are also, we were told that there are also other renewable energy sources that we should look at when we talk about acceleration, especially the ones that are linked to building decarbonization, which is one of the main energy consumption element for cities. So yeah, I think there are different points. Overall, the feeling is positive, so we have this need, but at the same time, yeah, some worries that we have to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for this perspective on how the fast tracking on permitting is also meeting, let's say, the ground and what you are gathering from your members at the local level. So I think this connects well to our next speakers, who is Jonathan Bonadio, who from the industry side coordinates Solar Power's Europe policy work on the Renewable Energy Directive, on permitting and on governance. So please, the floor is yours.
Thanks indeed, Paula, and thanks a lot for the invitation to the European Sustainable Energy Week. I'm very pleased to speak today. I'm very happy to share with you some insights from what we've discussed today, how the permitting is going in Europe for solar projects, and how, let's say, we can have a look at what's happening on the ground and how the Brussels legislation are actually happening on the ground. So first of all, I would like to have a few words of introduction about Solar Power Europe. We are an association representing the photovoltaic industry, the whole value chain of solar, which means from the extraction of raw materials until the installation through the building process, maintenance, independent power producers. We really have a whole range of members with more than 300 organizations. And we are working closely with 30 national associations that represent the sector of solar and renewables in national and in European capitals. So a few words about solar, maybe for those who are not familiar with solar and the current installation. So currently we have in Europe more than 250 gigawatts of solar power installed. So 250 gigawatt might not speak to all of you, but 250 gigawatt is the equivalent in terms of maximum output of 250 nuclear reactors. It's also, for the fun fact, the equivalent of having one single PV panel per each European citizen. So this is where we are right now. You might say it's quite a lot, but actually is not that much compared with what the Repower EU provisions have put forward, 750 gigawatts by 2030 to reach our climate energy targets, which means multiplying by 3 our installation rates until 2030. But for this, we will need an important enabling framework. And here in the slide we have put forward what we would need to make this transition happen. It's not only about producing and about installing panels, it's also about the grid, very important element, about supply chains, having an increasing amount of panels and supply chains relocated, reshored in Europe. It's about regulatory stability, one very important element, and visibility for the sector. It's about public support as well. I mean, Sarah mentioned consultation for cities, communities, and citizens, and we will indeed need to ensure that the quality of project and the consultation is there to ensure a constant public support, which is relatively high right now, but we need to be confirmed in the future. And last but not least, the biggest share, the biggest slice on this house is the permitting. We really need to speed up permitting while keeping the quality of projects. And I mentioned we had 30 national members. So we ask these national members, what do they think, what do they see happening on the ground in terms of implementation of the provisions that are defined at EU level for accelerating provisions. So there is a table. I won't go into the details of the table. As you can imagine, we have monitored different provisions, be it acceleration areas, a definition of positive silence for small-scale projects, accelerated permitting on artificial structure from the renewable emergency regulation from last year, but also monitoring deadlines. Are the deadlines from the previous renewable energy directive currently implemented at national level? And as you can see, there are quite a big share of red in this table still. What does it mean? It means that there might be at national level the provisions there, but in practice for some elements there might not have the exact implementation at national level, which means, for instance, for deadlines, we can still see projects that need more than 2 years, so more than the official deadline from the Renewable Energy Directive, the previous one. We can still see projects that are stuck in the permitting pipeline with like 3-4 year processes, so this is something important. On the good side, the rooftop solar and small-scale installation have also gained traction and really have been accelerated, so this is a good sign, but we still see that most provisions that we have and emergency regulations are currently either only partially implemented or poorly implemented. So I will invite you to go to our website to check our different reports on the REST booster, which is the emergency regulation, on the mapping, how member states perform mapping. As you can see, so a lot of progress has been made, especially for small scale and rooftop, but still a lot to be done. So to be continued, and I'm looking forward to the next discussions. Thanks indeed.
Thank you very much for these very comprehensive insights on accelerating permitting and the difficulties that remain there. So this brings me to our fourth speaker, who is Seda, who manages the Renewable Energy Program at Climate Action Network, and who will bring us the civil society perspective. Please.
Good morning, everyone, both in the room and watching us online. So my name is Seda. I'm working with Climate Action Network Europe. We are the leading NGO coalition fighting the climate crisis. So together with our members and many partners in 40 European countries, we work together for a fast, fair, nature and community inclusive energy transition for a 100% renewable Europe by 2040. And as Paolo, you were mentioning that in our efforts to streamline the permitting and to accelerate the renewable energy, wind, solar, but also the infrastructure development at the speed and scale needed to achieve and over-exceed our current energy and climate targets, the strategic planning for renewable energy, and also designating suitable and acceleration areas remains really key, and it remains as a key challenge as well. So together with the Eco Institute and with European NGO networks, WWF, EEB, and BirdLife, we looked into the crucial questions. We looked into how member states are progressing in the special planning processes, and how are they already designating the renewables acceleration areas, and especially the robustness of the process, looking into the use of the sensitivity mappings to minimize the impacts on the biodiversity, and also looking into the public participation in this process to ensure that we have the communities and citizens on board, which will be indeed a make or break moment for a factor for the next months and years to really accelerate the deployment on the ground. So what the analysis really showed, that as you see in the slide, overall, looking at the outcome, we really see a good progress on the ambition for the renewable energy across the countries we looked into. However, when it really comes to the special planning and the designation of renewables acceleration areas, most of the member states are still lacking the adequate resources and also the tools that will be necessary to make sure that we really minimize the impacts on nature and ensure the public are engaged and participate in this process. So you will see that, for instance, in Portugal is a front runner in the renewables acceleration area designation. However, there are also some challenges in the adequate resources in the administration and as well as public participation. And when it comes to the important factor of public participation, you see also many reds. And Spain, for instance, in Spain, we are really lacking proper public participation in the decisions governing the renewable energy deployment. But we really see that the upcoming months and years will be really crucial to improve this framework and to make sure that we can really deploy renewables in an inclusive and also nature-friendly way. So what are the key points really standing out? So these are really the six key actions that the member states and the regional and the local governments also we need to take into account and implement. So the first one is definitely the early accessible public engagement and participation. So the offering citizens and the stakeholders the different modes of participation so that their voices can be heard and the process can create trust and ownership. And secondly, we really analyzed that currently the data collection, when it comes to the biodiversity impacts and the use of sensitivity mappings are really lacking. They are inadequate. So it will be really crucial to improve the data collection and across the different administration level, and also to make sure that these data are integrated in the sensitivity mappings, and so that the sensitivity mappings are properly used when it comes to the spatial planning for the acceleration. So this also requires a strong coordination between the different levels of the authorities, between regional, national, and local, which is really currently lacking in the countries that we looked into. So the administrative burdens are there, as also Sarah was mentioning, from the local level to the regional level as well. And also this also requires, if we want to overcome the administrative hurdles and improve the efficiency of the processes, we need skilled people. We need people wanting to work for the administrations, and we need them to be skilled, also to ensure that the much needed digitalized process is put in the place. So I mean, definitely, when we want to really deploy renewables in a most sensitive, both for biodiversity and socially sensitive way, is number one action point is the prioritizing the artificial and the dual land uses. So in the countries we looked into, this is still lacking. And we also lack not only the willingness, but also the policy framework and concrete ambition for the prioritization and the uses of the artificial land, and to really tap into the incredible dual land use potential on the ground. And the grid capacity. We know that not only we need to deploy renewables, but we really need to ensure all the great solar and wind projects are integrated into the electricity mix. So for that, grids remaining a big challenge. The capacities need to be improved. When we, for instance, looked into the Portugal, who is a forerunner for the renewables acceleration area, the grid capacity is lacking, and as well as in Poland, where the big investments need to be taken up in the next months and years. So I leave it here. As NGOs, we really urge for speed with quality, really ensuring the robustness of the process so we can really collectively achieve and overachieve our targets by 2030 and beyond for a fully renewable, inclusive and just Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and also for zooming already into renewable acceleration areas design and also the lessons and recommendations that you are putting together. So we have now listened to the perspective of member states, also how actions at national level also impact the local level from renewable energy industry and from civil society. And we would like now to really dive into the remaining barriers in more detail. So for this, we will go back to our audience here in the room and online. And we would ask you to think really and indicate which barriers you believe are the most urgent to address. So for that, you can see again the Slido code so that you can take active participation in this survey. And you can see that there will be several options coming up having to do with the staffing that we were mentioning now, right skills also of the permitting authorities, lack of available space, public acceptance, grid capacity that was also mentioned, digitalization. And we would ask you to please select up to 3 options among these ones. But also, if you consider that there are other barriers that do not appear in the list, please click on Other. And then if we get some requests for Other, there will be further down the possibility to type your answer when then subsequently a so-called word cloud will open for that. So we leave it, we give it a minute also for participants to come into. And I think we will also need to look into the other, because I see that there are several requests in that regard. So a bit of patience still. So I look to my colleagues so that they tell me when we are ready. So I think we can already see some clear winners coming from the list, and also a bit reinforcing some of the messages that we were already listening in the first round of interventions. So I will now turn to our speakers. What do you think about these different elements? We will, I think, in a short while also get some more indications about what other barriers our audience is identifying. So from your perspectives, which are the barriers that you think are the most urgent to address and why? And also, could you, as you have been doing already, highlight examples of these barriers and of the potential solutions? So I pass it first over to you, Jorge, please.
Thank you. I think what we see on the survey is quite It's really spot on. No? So those are the big essential topics. No? The way we look at it, we think local and regional governments should take decisive action on this front. So if you want to go seriously about renewable energy, you have to make it the top priority of your government policy or your strategy. No? And that's certainly what we're trying to do. No? So we established very clear targets as part of Andalusia's energy strategy 2030. With two clear goals, which are to achieve at least 42% of the final energy consumption covered by renewable and 75% of electricity generation in 2030, which I believe are well, quite clear objectives, and we definitely track them on a regular basis, on a monthly basis in our regional ministry committee. No? Also, the way we look at it, and some of it is already captured on screen. Some people talk about the trilemma. Three elements that we need to balance, that we need to manage in a balanced way, and those have to do with generation, grid expansion, and demand generation. The stimulation of demand. And it takes the balanced management of these three elements in order to do things the way that is a view we tend to agree with. And if we want to be more specific, I would say grid expansion and digitalization would be a top priority for sure. We are lagging behind in grid structure almost in every country, certainly in Spain. Also, the promotion of energy demand, as I just mentioned, as part of that trilemma. For us, energy storage is a challenge in itself, something that hasn't been really addressed so far. And then, very important, social acceptance and engagement. We tend to dedicate as much time as we can to engage with municipalities and with NGOs who don't have a clear view on this topic, or who hesitate, or who don't see the advantage, or who are not sufficiently comfortable or happy with the way we process things. So we dedicate a lot of time to that. And we were actually the first regional government in Spain, and I would say the first government in Spain, even ahead of the national government, to run a campaign, to run a public campaign, digital media, also outdoor, and print, explaining the benefits of renewable and how we do go about them. No? We think that's really important. And then also education and training, because we need to bridge a huge labor market gap. No? There are not enough people, particularly when it comes to construction and maintenance. No? And if you talk to EPC companies, they will tell you that all the time. No? We don't have enough people, no? Which we always see, which we also see as a big opportunity to create quality jobs. No? I'd like to finish by saying something, which is by reflecting on something that we firmly believe in. We think renewable energy is a nice opportunity for rural areas, for the countryside, let's say, for small towns. We think, in our experience, based on the last years, we think clean energies can be really helpful at reducing population loss and creating job opportunities in rural areas. And that is something which is based on experience, as I said. No, in the last year, most of the 1.6 gigawatts that were installed in Andalusia were installed in rural areas, and we actually run a study on taxes that will end up in municipalities as a result of renewable energy installations, and it all added up to a significant number. So we're talking about 1,200 million euros in small municipalities as a result of taxation and licensing permits related to renewable. Which is interesting. But if we talk about something which is even more important from a qualitative point of view, and whenever we engage with renewable energy companies and solar companies in particular, we always talk about positive social impact. When we talk up to big promoters, well, big, medium-sized promoters, we always say, you guys should double down, should be really keen to have a positive social impact. So we always encourage local value chains and local jobs. And we think all that connects to the issue of social acceptance. No? That's a little bit the way we look at it. So grid infrastructure, but also the promotion of energy demand and elements related to the acceptance of the whole renewable energy system or solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So from the national to the local level, if I can invite you, Sarah, to react.
Yes, indeed. I won't talk too much about public acceptance, social acceptance, because indeed, Jorge, already you said a lot. For me, just one small additional point on public acceptance is that often the way things are communicated, they explain the benefits, but there are sometimes we saw that there is an added value when it's not about sharing part of the benefit, but really owning the renewables at local level. So be it municipal energy company, be it energy communities. So there is those are huge tools to foster social acceptance, in our opinion. I would go to mention, well, one of the main barrier that was highlighted in the Slido, which is staffing and skilling of permitting authority, because this is something Energy Cities has been working on a lot. And actually, we even conducted a study a couple of years ago on the staff needs for the decarbonization of the built environment, only for the decarbonization of the built environment. And we found out that we would need additional 2.5 full-time positions in each European municipality per year, only for that. So, of course, here we are not talking about decarbonization of the environment. This is just an example, but I would imagine that in order to fast-track, really speed up permitting at a level that we need to achieve our target, there should be similar, that we will find similar results also in this field. And so why municipalities don't have enough staff? There are different reasons. One is that they have operating budget, which are too limited, and so basically they cannot open long-term position. The second is that the investment for the climate and energy transition, even those ones that in theory one would think we need to do those as much as possible, are not exempted from the strict budgetary rules that governs their expenses. And third, maybe, it's also because often the employment offer in local governments are less attractive than those of other economic sector, especially, of course, I'm mentioning just the salary, but it can be also in terms of opportunities and career development. And so we are running a campaign which is called Local Staff for Climate that I invite you to have a look at. And we suggested some solution as well. So, for example, we should make sure that the climate objective at national level are aligned with human resources available at local level. And so, for example, the National Energy and Climate Plan should be based on local needs to operate really properly. Second is really to change budgetary rules so that a municipality can actually operate properly. And also, in order to boost the attractiveness of employment in local government, there are already instruments such as the European Technical Support Instrument that could be used to address this challenge as well. And another challenge that I would like to address is the one on information and knowledge, which is linked to skilling as well, of course. Just to quote something that has been happening in France as an example. So there is the French network Amorce who developed a tool called Acceler-N. They provide information on rest potential, consumption, infrastructure that could be suitable for installation. And this tool has been apparently quite used by municipalities to really facilitate collaborations as well. And also the role of intercommunal, so grouping of municipalities has been, according to our members, has been a good way to mobilize also the smaller municipalities that are often the one with the most problems with regarding this kind of topic of permitting. And to be honest, those are often also the municipality that we expect to be a bit more under pressure in terms of permitting requests, because those are rural municipalities. That's where majority of available space and land maybe is going to be found for renewable energy installation. So yes, we should really make sure that those municipalities are well equipped as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks indeed. I'm very pleased by the results because they confirm also what we have in mind. I would like to highlight one element first on grid capacity and what Jorge say about flexibility. I mean, this will be the major bottleneck, if not solved swiftly in the next year, in the future years for solar projects. Currently in France, we have projects that are ready to deliver. They are installed, they are fully operational, but they wait for 6 months, 1 year, sometimes more than 1 year, just for having a grid connection. In Portugal, we are seeing similar patterns. These are really elements where we need to act and make sure. The good news is that we now have an Article 15E in the Renewable Energy Directive that states that member states have the possibility to define also grid acceleration areas, and we believe this is also an exercise that should be done in parallel with the renewable acceleration areas to really guarantee grid capacity. Also, I mean, we are living in a world which we now have in Europe 22% of electrification, meaning that electricity represents 22% of final energy consumption. The Commission, in its 2040 study, puts forward the proposal to reach 35% by 2030, 50% of electrification by 2040. This means really working on grids, on flexibility, on storage, on demand response, and making sure that the system is ready for accommodating high share of renewables. So this is quite an important element, and we will definitely emphasize on this. In some member states, such as Sweden, we have grid companies that have actually a connection obligation, which means that they are obliged to connect renewable capacity, provided that this is on reasonable terms, that this does not require a too high upgrade of the grid, but this is something that we see as a very positive element into certain member states, and also positive silence for grid connection for small producers is also very important. I would like to briefly also tackle public acceptance, which is, I would not name it an emergency, more a long-term process. I mean, we need to guarantee that public acceptance, public support is there and will be there in the future, in the next years, and even in the next decades. So, and for this, I think Sarah and Seda have mentioned it already, but citizen engagement is key. I mean, we are at Solar Power Europe. We are right now in the process of setting up a guidance on citizen and community engagement for solar project. We see two big aspects of community engagement. The first is the early engagement through public consultation, public meetings, opinion polls, websites, so everything which is about communicating about the project, communicating about the benefits, but also about the potential impacts. So this is also something that we value. And the second part would be engaging in citizen participation, either through financial benefits or reduced electricity tariffs for nearby citizens. So these are really projects that are important. Crowdfunding, we're seeing a lot of cities in Europe that are involved also into crowdfundings. And one thing that will be for us very important is to ensure that we develop public-private partnerships, because the private sector needs the public sector, needs citizens, cities to engage in the transition. On the other hand, when we talk to some cities, we see that there is also a need for the expertise of private developers. So this is really something that we would value in the future. And last but not least, I have a remark. I've been pretty surprised by one thing in the poll, actually. Staffing and skilling is the highest priority, and digitalization is the lowest. And for us, both really go hand in hand, because through digitalization, you can really optimize and reduce the need for staff if the things are done in the right way. For instance, in Flanders, the region has launched a portal that allows renewable permits, including impact assessment, to be submitted in a digital format. And digitalization is actually for us a no-brainer in terms of facilitating the process, really having everything on a single platform, being able to follow the progress of the authorization process. So this is also something which is for us connecting with staffing and skilling and quite, I mean, we have seen that for some wind projects, digital platform could really help increasing the number of projects that are implemented and they are scrutinized by the local authorities. So yeah, for us it's something which we need to be connected together. So, voilà, thanks for the poll. Very interesting results indeed.
Thank you very much, and also for making this link between digitalization and the staffing bottlenecks, because indeed this is quite telling from the results. And similarly, for also making the link between grid capacity and Article 15A of the Renewables Directive, because indeed it's also quite relevant. So let's now move to our second round of questions. Now that we have looked into the bottlenecks, the next question that we will ask our speakers has to do with what the role of the Commission would be in monitoring progress on the ground, and also what else could be done by the Commission to provide support to member states and also for renewable project promoters. So let's start again on my left-hand side. Jorge, please.
Thank you. We tend to think that decisive action and a change of tack, change of pace needs to happen at all levels, no? EU level, but also state level, also regional and local level. No? Just to give you an example, and I think this is something we should all reflect upon. No? If we talk about European level, the Fit for 55 package was presented in July 21, and it was approved in Parliament in April 24. That's almost 3 years later, and it still needs to be ratified by Council. Okay, that is a fact. No? So the question is, can Europe still afford to move at this speed, no? in this new cycle that we will enter after the elections last weekend? Then we also think, if you talk about the EU level, the European Union level, we also think the Commission should take more decisive action when it comes to developing grid. So grid expansion, grid investments, but also really driving interconnections, which are really poor at this point in time. So the way we look at it, and this is something we have proposed to the Spanish government, but I think it's fair to mention it here in this context, is that we should, I think the EU should really consider the use of next generation funds, or whatever funds, whatever they are called in this new cycle, for grid expansion, and also for the development of interconnections. Particularly, I would say, being Spanish, with the Iberian Peninsula, with Iberia, which is pretty much isolated when it comes to interconnections. Last but not least, with regards to the European level, if you look about the results of the first auction of the European Hydrogen Bank, and you look at it with a bit of attention, you see that numbers show there's still a lack of confidence, a lack of, I don't know, determination, drive. No? And we're talking about the number of offers, we're talking about the leverage price that has been offered, we're talking about the deadlines that have been established by the different offers. No? So you see a lack of confidence, a lack of determination in this first auction of something as specific and necessary as the hydrogen opportunity. No? And the question is, can we still afford to behave in in this way and compete in this way in the times of the IRA in the US, for example, with its $3 per kilogram of direct incentives to the production of hydrogen. So, in our view, just to summarize all that, we think we really need to change tack when it comes to action at European level. Now, if you talk about national levels, just to mention a couple of things, Spain's updated climate action plan still needs to be approved by Brussels. So we know what it looks like. The targets have been set, but it hasn't been approved by Brussels. Secondly, there are important elements related to power, new available power related to the just transition, therefore related to the closing of some big thermal plants that still need to be opened. And last but not least, some big projects nationwide, located nationwide, and certainly a couple of them in particular, 3 of them in Andalusia, which were tagged IPCI by Brussels. IPCI projects are still pending confirmation of the final subsidies, the final CAPEX subsidies. So these are things that are taking too long at national level. At regional level, what we're trying to do as much as we can at our competence level is to really try to simplify things. So we have approved a 4th decree related to simplification. We have modified 176 laws and norms at regional level. And some of them are certainly related to energy. So, for example, we have simplified urban planning legislation to reduce complexity related to renewable energy installations. And now, very recently, we have reduced paperwork related to installations below 500 kilowatts. So I think at all levels, as I said at the beginning, European level, nationwide level, national governments, regional governments, we all need to take decisive actions if we really want to accelerate. Last but not least, I would say regions in Europe should collaborate more intensely in this challenge. And what we're trying to do from Andalusia is to establish collaboration protocols with some fellow regions. That is something that we already did, for example, with Saxony, and we both joined the solar industry region in Europe, the CINEA initiative. We did the same thing with, now recently, for example, with Rotterdam. We have established maritime corridors to connect green molecules, green hydrogen and ammonia and methanol produced in Andalusia to the port of Rotterdam. So just a few examples also to provide some light, some flavor as to how we can collaborate more intensely at the regional level and local level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's continue also with you, Seda. What would be your inputs?
Yes, also linking to the previous discussion on the most urgent barriers, actually all these barriers are very much interlinked, right? If we really want to increase the public support for the acceleration, it's also actually about making sure the community-owned projects can access to the grid. So there is enough grid capacity also allocated to those citizens, to those residents who are gathering up and installing their own projects. So digitalization is also linked to very much to the skilled personnel as well, and also to the grid capacity back on this. Because if you really want to improve the efficiency, the current efficiency of the existing grid, which is extremely old as we see in the reports, and also increase the demand side flexibility, we would need digitalization across the system. But I see it also linked to what the Commission can really do. You set up specific groups to support member states that you also detailed in the guidance document. However, we really see an urgent need for developing key performance indicators. So this can really nicely link to the community benefit sharing and also including the public participation indicators, so that we can collectively on the ground move towards a more inclusive speeding up. So this can be, I mean, for us, this can be definitely definitely thoroughly monitored by a specific task force that the Commission could put together, which can at the same time support member states, support their experts to really learn from each other and to really implement the Renewable Energy Directive. So we see a lot of concerns coming from the member states' ministries, actually reaching out to stakeholders, including NGOs, asking how the directive should be transposed in a way also harmonious with the existing nature laws. So these are one of the examples that can be really tackled by a specific task force, and also who can be in charge of the monitoring of the KPIs. And also, I mean, there is the guidance document really is we really see it as a first step from the Commission, and we very much welcome the efforts by your team, Paula. So we really need to really also do more and bring more guidance to the implementers, because you already started tapping into the mitigation rule book and actually supporting and also urging member states to really look into the community benefit sharing to increase public support, but these would really need more detailed guidance in the next months. So we really welcome the willingness also from the authorities and from the Commission to really speed up the deployment in a way inclusive of nature, but also of the community. So we are ready as civil society to be part of these informal expert groups, but also task force. And with our members also from the countries, we can bring a wealth of expertise and experience from the ground to really work together to make it happen.
Thank you very much for coming back on the barriers indeed, and also on the monitoring, and with very clear inputs on what else could be done on the Commission side. So now I pass it over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Paula. Well, I can just agree with what Seda just said on the periodic monitoring. I think it would be interesting to really, yes, of course, you look into how the permit granting process is going. Maybe even this could be done in the framework of the National Energy and Climate Plans reporting. But it would be also interesting to see how the multi-level coordination and the participation of municipalities has been ensured. And also, yes, it's about acceleration of permits, but it would be good to see if after the permit has been granted, the projects are happening actually. So of course, permitting is one important stage, but what's going to happen once the permit is sorted is something that I would be very interesting to see in terms of really checking the positive effect of accelerating permitting. Or maybe to discover maybe that there are new barriers that we have to tackle next. Another element for me would be the need for the Commission could support the efforts of sharing knowledge and communicating about this in the different countries, and so maybe even doing this systematically and by using a platform that the Commission has actually set up, for example, at local level, like the technical support, the mission cities and the Covenant of Mayors, but this could be also done via the technical support instrument as well. So this, for me, would be also an interesting action that the Commission could take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it is your turn now. Jonathan, please.
Thanks. I mean, first of all, I would like to echo what my colleagues from CanEurope and from Energy Cities said. I mean, we fully support the definition of key performance indicators, KPIs, for monitoring the progress of member states. I mean, currently, when you ask member states how much time does it take on average, and how much time does it take in maximum to allow permits for a solar or wind project, sometimes they don't even know. We don't even have this information. This is something we really need to monitor. I mean, in terms of guidance, I mean, we really welcome the move from the Commission to provide this guidance on permitting on acceleration areas, and we believe that this should also continue in the future to accompany member states. But in terms of indicators, in terms of monitoring, we would need also to check, I mean, what is the staff, for instance, how much staff do we have per megawatt of project installed? What are the thresholds for the deadlines for respecting for small-scale installations? How many installers do we have per megawatt? So all these elements could be very interesting to monitor. And no, I mean, I'm going to be a bit provocative, but I think it would be interesting to understand what the Commission is intending to do to member states which are currently lagging behind, even in the implementation of the second renewable directive from 2018. We still have member states that do not apply the 2 years, 1 + 1 year deadline for projects. What happens now, I mean, if we see that we have, I mean, in terms of digitalization, we still have processes which are only partially or sometimes not even digitalized at all. So of course it's important to have carrots and to have good to accompany member states and to help member states, because these are complex provisions, but also at some point also, I mean, to exert the right to push member states to really implement these provisions and to make sure that what we have agreed at European level is actually also applied at national level. So voilà, this is the final say on these, what the Commission could do to really implement these provisions.
Yes, thank you very much. So maybe I already take the ball here. So I think here we have really put quite a lot of focus on transposition and implementation, and we have done it also moving away, let's say, from business as usual. So together with the Wind Power Action Plan last year, we launched the Accelerate initiative. And as part of this initiative, not only we are coming with all this guidance on the one hand, recommendations, further guidance that will come in principle before the summer break, but we are also meeting member states bilaterally to go through the different provisions to see where they are on transposition, to support as much as possible, but then also, of course, to follow up as necessary, depending on progress or lack of progress in some cases. So definitely a really important point and a priority for the Commission. So I think we have some time for a third round of questions. So I will hand over to the team, and in particular to Laila Kinnell, who is team leader for renewables deployment and who will take over this last round of questions that we have received from the audience here in the room and also connected online. So Laila, please.
Thank you, Paula. In the meantime, we also opened the word cloud. As you remember, we had the option other. If you did not want to only select one of the predefined options on what barriers are the most urgent to address, so you can still keep adding to that in the meantime. But we have also received a few questions which I would put maybe to all the speakers since you can provide different perspectives. And there was one having to do with, let's say, awareness and information, namely that permitting process usually involves a high number of municipalities, and the question is whether they always have the right information about renewables, and whether that means there might be a need for some kind of an information campaign and other activities to, let's say, to have a bit of the maybe pedagogical or informative aspect. So that would be one question. And maybe to allow you to answer on different aspects, I would then add a couple more. There was also a question on litigation, whether there's not a lot of litigation that is delaying the projects, and perhaps there the angle could be on what can be done better to avoid this litigation, because as you know, in the renewables directive, anything to do with legal procedures, appeals is still outside the deadline. So this is one area where it's not fully captured, where procedures can get prolonged, but then there's not really a clear solution. And then maybe also on partnerships, since you already alluded to that a little bit, maybe to put a positive angle, we always talked about talking more to each other, but how can this be done concretely? Who needs to talk to whom? And how can this be done better to ensure that you put the right people together to find the solutions? So please, maybe let's start with Mr. Paradella. Please go ahead.
Can you repeat the first question, sorry?
Yeah, the first question was on information campaigns. So having to do with municipalities having the right information about renewables and their benefits. And I think you already in your presentation alluded to that. But yes, how can this be done to reach everyone with the message that the renewables are important and the way forward?
I think this is something we need to insist in, and we need to be really consistent with. No, I mean, there's no magic bullet. It is something we need to address on a constant basis. As it is right now, we tend to spend a lot of time with NGOs and municipalities where there is public contestation, public opposition to renewables. That is something we have been doing on a regular basis for the last 2 years. But it's never finished. No? Like, for example, I can think now of some initiatives in Granada, in the area of Granada, where there is opposition. So again, the team is talking to the different municipalities, talking to different NGOs, and we always engage in a positive way. No? First of all, you need to understand why there is opposition. What are the key arguments they tend to use? We always explain the permitting process and how it works, and we always encourage renewable energy promoters to come up with compensation measures. I don't know if it's a good translation, but how will you compensate in terms of your social and environmental impact with regards to that municipality? And then, as I mentioned before, for us it is really important also to always encourage, always foster local value chains and a lot of local jobs. So this is something we do on a case-by-case basis, but we also try to have this umbrella campaign, which we ran last year in 2 waves, and it talks to different targets. So it talks to entrepreneurs, it talks to environmentalists, it talks to civil servants, it talks to the wider population. And what are the benefits of the energy transition? Why should a place like Andalusia not only embrace this as an opportunity, but also as a way to fight against climate change? Because this is an area with water scarcity, where we are facing persistent droughts, and that will continue to be the case. No? That for us, we always say that is the translation of climate change in Andalusia, persistent droughts. No? So this is all a kind of that's the way we approach the conversation. And I mean, as I said, I mean, there's no silver bullet, but it is something we will continue doing on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, it sounds like indeed there's already some good examples that can be learned from in the case of Andalusia. Then perhaps, Sarah, let's move on to you.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, I already mentioned before that there is a big need of information and capacity building, and campaigns are often a good way to go. Just as an example, the Covenant of Mayors has just launched this week a campaign on detoxifying heat. So a city detox, heat detox campaign. So this kind of initiative at European level, I think, are really needed because we still lack in some situation level of information and on what is required and awareness of the efforts that are needed at the city level to tackle some of these important issues, such as permitting, such as heat decarbonization. So definitely, yes, campaigns at European level are important, and also I think it's also when you going on to the partnership question. So how to develop partnership in practice? Of course, here. There needs to be some level of systematized multi-level processes at national level. So a systematized process of consultations with the different level involved. But this can be also achieved via tools, platforms. And I think one of our projects recently developed a matchmaking tool, for example, to facilitate collaboration between municipalities and energy communities. So municipalities can place their assets, available assets, on this platform, and energy communities that are willing to develop projects can take those assets and then see them on the platform, then they get in touch. So there are different levels. Of course, one is really like the governance level, and the other is more practical, and it's about setting up, giving municipalities, in this case, the tools to support them in the creation of this partnership.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. I think there was a little wink to digitalization there as well, that some of the tools that we have that we can use, they are also useful for making these links. And then maybe, Jonathan, over to you. And if you want to tackle one of the other questions as well, please feel free, but whichever is more relevant for you. Thanks.
Thanks. So on the communication side and how to reinforce public knowledge and ultimately support acceptance of solar projects and renewables in general. I mean, at Solar Power Europe, we have launched a campaign called Solar Saves, which is targeted to rooftop solar, which really shows concrete examples of what has been done and what does a solar PV installation implies in terms of economics, in terms of energy savings, in terms of rural empowerment and reduction in grid fees and electricity tariffs. So this is something that we have also promoting. We are also working on launching a bit a more thorough platform with Q&As on solar, also to inform the public about how solar works and what are the potential benefits. Also, the frequently asked questions is something that we would like to promote in the future. I would like to tackle one specific question, which is the public-private partnerships, and also how to engage the public sector and the private sector together. I mean, we have published this year, together with Energy Cities, together with ECLE, the local government for sustainability, FEDEREN, the energy agencies. We have published, and EuroCities, we have published a report called Solar Cities, when we have 21 examples of how cities have actually engaged, not could engage, but have engaged on the ground with concrete examples where cities, municipalities, and project developers work hand in hand together to promote solar solutions. One of them, for instance, very simple. I mean, there is a municipality in Portugal, Cascais, which has installed solar PV panels on the municipal roof, and which is sharing energy with citizens, and especially vulnerable citizens, or citizens in a situation of energy poverty. And the project has been supported by one of our members, Greenvolt, and this is also something that we can see happening more and more. For instance, we have another project in Spain, in the Canary Island, in ADG, called ADG Verde, which has been implemented by our member E.ON, together with the municipality of ADG, when you have solar PV panels on municipal roof. And I mean, the good thing is that thanks to legislation in Spain, there is a legislation which is very favorable to energy sharing. The project, the producer doesn't pay grid fees when electricity is consumed within a certain area close to the project. So citizens which are located in a circle of, I think it's 2 kilometer radius around the project, can benefit from so lower electricity tariffs, could become consumers or even prosumers if they have a rooftop. So all these examples, I mean, I invite you to check Solar Cities report, but this is really something that we try to promote as much as possible. And as I mentioned before, I mean, we believe that the project developers have a lot to bring as their experience to develop solar project, but also citizens and municipalities have also a lot to teach the project developers how to develop good projects and how to engage at local level. So voila, I will invite you to have a look at the report further. Thanks.
Thank you. We're always happy about very concrete examples, and I think there you also touched upon some of the benefit sharing and public acceptance issues, so which is all very, very important. Maybe we can move to Seda first, and then we can conclude in the concluding part. Seda, please go ahead.
Yes, Laila. It's really also great to hear from Jonathan and this partnership between different stakeholders on good renewables. As civil society, we also call them fair renewables. Because if the citizens have the opportunity to really engage in the process, in the processes governing the location and the project development, as well as if they can really benefit from the renewable energy projects, we see that also the litigation decreases. So it all comes together. And when we really talk about information awareness raising campaigns, it's definitely needed. And this can be really something maybe the European Commission can get more active on really launching, putting the resources behind an EU-wide communication campaign, still communicating about the benefits of renewable energy. But when we really look at the local level, especially in the rural communities that will be hosting the large-scale renewable energy projects, these information campaigns should be also accompanied by robust community benefit sharing schemes. And we also need to really equip the municipalities so that they know what can they actually demand from the developers, so they can sit at the table together and bring the community interest on the table and have a negotiation and to get the best deal for the renewables deployment, but also for the communities that are hosting them. So this really goes beyond. I mean, renewable energy projects, they create local value, they create jobs. But when we really look at the backlash in the rural communities, I mean, we have seen, just to give you an example, you might have been also following, 2 years ago, we saw in Spain big public protest, renewables, yes, not like this. I think it really gives us a really strong message that we really need to engage communities and citizens early at the stage, but also including the nature conservation groups. So at the national level, their associations, but at the local level, so they are engaged early enough so that their concerns can be really heard and they can influence the decisions. Because if these are not really in place, we see the increase of the litigation. And also to add that as civil society, access to justice on environmental matters is a right given by the Aarhus Convention, so this should be definitely kept. But the litigation cases have also learned us key lessons on the importance of the sensitivity mappings, importance of the accurate data collection, so that we can really create trust among stakeholders, both at different levels, and we can really advance collectively, and also create this inclusive and just energy system where everybody, all the stakeholders are on board.
Thank you, Seda. And indeed, I mean, you mentioned the communication efforts at EU level. There is true, for instance, a good example was what was done by the Commission in the context of REPowerEU, making a very clear link to renewables, but also at the same time, I think it's an area where, as we were hearing from some of you, it also needs to rely very much on the local level, on the industry, also to reach out to the local conditions, and that is more difficult than at the EU level. But before I move now into the final remarks, I think, Jorge, you wanted
No, I just wanted to pick up very quickly on something Jonathan just mentioned, no? About the solar roofs and so we have our own energy savings plan in the regional government of Andalusia. So we want to save 12% by 2026 versus baseline year 2021. So we already have installed self-consumption, or solar for self-consumption in 250 public buildings, and we have another 180 or so underway, which is I think significant, no? And it connects with the idea of leading by example, no? Sorry, I just wanted to pick up on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think this brings us to the end of this very, very interesting session. So we have seen that there is really quite a lot going on, not only at the EU level, but also at the national level. We have seen a lot of progress with many member states adopting measures, including in the emergency regulation. This was shown by you, Jonathan, in your presentation. Also, some member states already working on renewable acceleration areas, as Seda also explained. We have also seen quite a strong political will with actions at the national, regional level, but also locally with engagement of communities and also reaching out to citizens. But we have also looked into the barriers. And there I think it was very interesting to see that indeed there was quite a big alignment, as you were saying, of what were identified as the key issues, with the nuance, of course, of the digital element. We see a lot of focus on grid capacity and flexibility. We also saw, both from the speakers and from the audience, the link to public acceptance, resources related to that in permitting authorities, but also how this links as well to information and knowledge, to local and community engagement. And we have also heard from our speakers what else could be done at the EU level on monitoring, also what could be the areas of focus for the Commission, being on grids, again, of course, connecting to the identified barriers, the connection to funding in this regard. Also, elements linked to monitoring, so to the development of key performance indicators and some setup for going through that over time, and how the guidance was welcome, but also seen as a first step in that regard. And then we also heard quite a lot about sharing of knowledge, engagement with local platforms, different ideas also floated in that regard. And also, yeah, again, on sharing knowledge and communication. And definitely on the importance from the Commission side to keep working on implementation, supporting Member States in the implementation of their recommendations, but also supporting Member States on transposition, so that what is in law then is also happening on the ground. So with this, I would really like to thank our audience very much in the room and online for the active participation, but also very warm thank you to our speakers for all the interventions and the very interesting examples. Thank you very much.